Let's go ahead and welcome Judy, and then at the end of the training today, she's going to leave about a half an hour to 20 minutes of questions for her as well as us. So hopefully we can answer some questions for you. But otherwise, let's rock.
Well, I have to tell you how grateful I am to come to this. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Judy Wright, and I own Artichoke Press and go under the moniker of Auntie Artichoke, which is an honorary title that was given to me by some native people. Auntie means a wise woman who loves unconditionally. And that's what I do. I come without judgment. I come without any preconceived notions. I love people just the way they are, and my agenda is never to make people better. It's just to make people feel more comfortable with who they are. So a couple of things. I need to tell you that Ron is here from MCAT, and today's subject is a little emotional. It may trigger some issues. I've asked him just to focus on me. He'll try not to get anyone's faces, but if anyone is uncomfortable, let me know, and he'll leave. Because I don't want any of you to feel uncomfortable, because this is a subject that is widespread universally. I just had the opportunity to go to the City Club. I'm going to pull this door shut. I don't think anybody's coming in from this door. I just had the opportunity to go to the City Club. Have any of you heard of the City Club here in Missoula? I hadn't either. And it's a gathering where leaders come and talk about issues that are facing our community and what we can do about them. And the speaker happened to be Tim Fox, who is the Attorney General. He came over from Helena, and he was talking about human trafficking. And so he asked us if we would take some posters and share them in our communities. And so I got a stack of them, and I'm going to ask each of you to take one home, put it in a convenience store bathroom. That's where I have found the best. But he said that we have a huge problem right now with the Balkans. And so we need to do everything that we can to help this, because that's part of our calling as child care providers, professional child care providers. So then I also have some handouts from STEP. Have any of you heard of STEP? Let's see what it stands for. It's a resource center, but it's sponsored by St. Pat's, and it's a community partnership of professionals dedicated to a coordinated team approach in child abuse and adult sexual assault investigations. So I want you to take this home, have this available, because what this means that if a child or if an adult discloses to you, often they don't disclose. In fact, I've got some statistics for you that are pretty startling. But if they do disclose, you don't want the child to have to repeat it over and over and over again. So STEP is where you would take the child where it would be videotaped once. And then they would never have to go to trial. They would never have to face their perpetrator. They would never have to do any of that. So these are resources, community resources. And I asked STEP about those of you who are from out of town, because there are quite a few of you who are not from here, right? Like, where are you from? Hamilton, yeah, that's close enough. But Billings, sometimes we have people here from Kalispell and Billings. And Bozeman, yeah. And I asked if there are these facilities in each community. They said yes, and also the police department has one person who's assigned to this, usually a female officer. So we're very lucky in Missoula. We have a young woman who's very diligent, just super good, really good. So I want to tell you my story. And my story is that I have been working in parent education for about 30 years. And about maybe 20 years ago, I was asked by Campfire, Boys and Girls Club, to teach a class called Caution Without Fear. And at that time, it was on good touch, bad touch. And I didn't do a very good job of writing that. Lori, you're such a good writer. Would you erase that and write it with a black pen? I don't know if Ron could even get it. But the blue didn't show up. So I was going into elementary schools and, you know, doing this little good touch, bad touch, and teaching all of these kids. And had a couple of teachers say, you know, I appreciate that you're here, but then you walk out. And I'm left with the aftermath. I'm not really sure what to do when I say, does anyone want to read Goodnight Moon? And they say, my daddy comes in my room. So you need to make sure you have some follow-up. And I really thought about that because as I was teaching that, I learned all of the facts, learned everything that you needed to know. And I'm going to give you those facts today. Good job. I love it when we have babies. Oh my gosh. Oh, how old? A week old? Oh, blessings on that little one. This is the community who is going to raise this baby. It takes a village, and this is the village that's going to raise it. So I knew all of these facts, but I kept thinking that one of our children was behaving oddly. She was funny, cute, smart, just a laugh a minute, until she hit 14. And then she became she just had all sorts of problems. But many of you have had 14-year-olds, and you think, could be, but then again, it might not be. And so I would question her and ask her, no, nothing is happening. And as we've told you before, my husband and I have 6 adult children. And for each of those adult children, they've each brought somebody home to our house. So we have kind of this elastic house, an elastic dinner table. And I knew that she had a friend who had been assaulted by an older brother, and they were in the process of all of this. But nothing ever came of it until she was 21. And she was 21, living on her own, and she came home one day to do the laundry. And my husband and I were gone, and when we came home, she was just in this puddle, just bawling and bawling. And she said, I have something I have to tell you that I should have told you 7 years ago. I said, okay, what? You know, we're here. We love you. I mean, we sat on the floor with her. We all held each other. And she said a very prominent businessman in Missoula, whom she had met when she came to my office after school, had thank you, dear, had tried to assault her at the at a thing, and good looking, 35 years old, very striking, and he put his arm around her like this. Hey, come on, and I'll buy you a soda. Oh. So then he did not manage to rape her because she fought him off. What he did was scare the bejesus out of her. He threatened our family. He threatened our animals. He threatened her. And as a 14-year-old, believe it or not, one of his threats was, I belong to the Chamber of Commerce. Who's going to believe you? And she didn't tell anyone. She didn't tell us. She didn't tell her sisters. She didn't tell anyone. We took her to counselors. We took her to our church. We did everything. She didn't tell anyone. Now, I wished I could tell you the reason she told us was because we were such incredible parents and so approachable and everything. That isn't the reason. Do you know why she finally broke down and told? Is because when she was there doing laundry that day, he came to the door with big brothers and sisters. He was working for big brothers and sisters. And she slammed the door, realized that it was not just her, that he was indeed in a position to harm other children. So I know all of you know what a mama bear does, but you don't mess with my babies. And so we immediately went to the big brothers and sisters, immediately went to the police, and as most sexual offenders, he had a completely clean record. And I said, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. We're going to push, and we're going to push, and we're going to push, and we're going to find somebody somewhere. Because in my facts, I knew that sexual offenders very seldom offend just once. Very, very, very seldom. And often when they're offending, they're grooming someone else. So what happens is that children don't tell. So the state of Montana took our case, even though it had been 7 years, and we sent him to prison. And we, as a family, wrote letters to the judge and said, he did not steal her innocence. He stole our family time. This is what he stole from me. This is what he stole from me. And sent pictures of her at 14 playing with Barbie dolls and swinging on the swings. Don't tell me that he enticed her, because of course he said, you know, she asked for it. If she didn't want it, she should have taken my hand off when I put my hand on her shoulder. So he did go to prison, and we pushed and pushed and pushed. Finally, the parole officer told us that she went all the way back to an ex-wife who said, yes, he's been doing this since he was a teenager. So we can only imagine how many people he harmed, and our daughter was the only one who had courage enough to step forward. And so I said to her, how do you want us to handle this? Because as normal people, we think, shh, you know, and we're going to talk about that later, about how secrets can harm you. And she said, Mom, you are in a position to teach. I want you to share with as many people as you can. I want you to say, this can happen to anyone. And so she is the finest example of courage we have ever seen in our life, and just has done amazing things with her life. But the reason I'm telling you this is when I first started, I knew the facts. After we had gone through this, I knew the feelings. And they're two distinctly separate things. So after we had gone through this, I had a very vivid dream one night. And as some of you may know, I've said it before, I'm not terribly religious, but I am very spiritual, very intuitive. I had a dream that I was to write this little book. Let me see. This little book. And I was to write it very quickly, that there were people waiting for this. And so I just dashed it off really quick. All of the facts, all of the things that I knew, little anecdotes. I took it with me to Great Falls, where I was talking on kids' chores and more. But from the stand, I said, I have 60 of these handbooks that I want to give out. And I would like you to hand them to whoever needs them, because I don't know who needs them. and you may need them, or you may know someone who needs them. And I said, these are free. My other books I'm selling. But at the end of the night, 59 of them had gone. So I thought, okay, I'm supposed to do this. And Jane and Lori know I have 23 books up on Amazon. So I'm a very prolific writer. Love to write, love. Just, I'm a healer through my fingers. And so I thought I was supposed to write this book and get it out there. And just felt really good, sent off a copy of it to a major publisher who said, yes, let's do it. You're in the queue, which means you're in the line. And for any of you who are writers, keep your day job, first of all, because you don't make very much money. It sounds a lot more important than it really is. But it takes about 2 years for a traditional publisher to publish a book. Now, with Kindle, it takes us a day. Where's the little boy with the Kindle? Yeah, it takes us about a day to get it up and get it up on Kindle. But so it was in the queue, and it was edited. And when it came back to me, it was not, I write Reader's Digest. I write just like I'm talking to you. Just exactly like I'm talking to you. Like we're having a cup of tea and we're visiting and we're sharing. When it came back, it was not Reader's Digest. It was The New Yorker. You know, it was all these research and stuff. And I thought, that isn't me. That isn't me. I don't want to do that. That isn't what I want to represent. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a therapist. I am not a counselor. I'm a mom and a gram and an observer, and I've been around the block a couple of times. And that's what I want to present, is that I'm not above you, I'm not smarter than you, I'm your equal, I'm your friend. So when it came back, I thought, I don't want to do it. I put it in a box and put it under my bed. Just said, no, I don't want to do that. And then recently, when you guys asked me if I would come again, I felt very inspired to do it again, to bring that out, to update it, to make it available for you in my way, because now I know how to self-publish. So thank you. However, part of me said, do I dare tell this room full of 70 professionals that this came to me in a dream? Yikes. You know, I mean, that's putting me out there. Some of them are going to say, woo, 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 woo. I mean, some of my kids say, woo, 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 woo. Yeah, you know, do I really? What if they don't believe me? What if they doubt me? What if they, you know, what if they question me? And I chewed on that for a while, and then I thought, how many kids would like to tell us something, but they're scared to death we won't believe it? They're scared to death that someone will say, really? I take, you know, I'm not going to buy that. And so they keep that as secret. And so I decided I would share with you. And as we are, hello, welcome. As we are working on this, there's a couple of chairs in the back and over here. This is when I had hoped I would have it done for you, but I don't. So this is how you do a book. This is page 30 and 31. This is a 60-page book. So you just put the pages back and forth. Any of you use Word? Yeah. Well, if you go on Word and you go down to booklet, it teaches you how, so when it prints out 1 and 60, 2 and 59, and 3 and 58. And then you just have to sit there and go like this. So this is the new book that's coming out. What I'm asking you, or what I'm telling you, is that if you can let me know your name and address or your name and email, I will send you either a free copy or a downloadable copy when it gets done. I will make sure you have it because I want you to be able to hand it out to other people, be able to share what you've learned today with those that you come in contact with. So we have a lot of stuff to cover. Once again, I have to tell you that this is a subject of 10 of us here. There's probably 4 who have either experienced sexual assault, known someone, or an inappropriate touch. And when I think of a word about this, the word that comes to my mind is confusing. And remember the good touch, bad touch? I mean, that was such a lousy description because this is good. You know, it can be good. And the offenders frequently are people who love us. So good touch, bad touch never felt right to me. Appropriate, inappropriate, even that is confusing. So I'm working with an illustrator to write another book for children that I will also let you know about. But until then, this is one that my friend wrote with her 4-year-old child. It's called My Private Parts. And it's one that I have a few copies left because this is before days of print on demand, and these were about $25. I'm selling them for $12. But it's one that kids can understand that this is my body. I own this body. And I need to give you permission to touch my body. One of the things when I was writing the book about raising smart and kind kids that my massage therapist taught me, that I loved was that parents should start right from the time we have our little one and say, what name?
Sovereign.
Sovereign? Okay, very pretty. Sovereign, I would like to change your diaper. This is going to make you feel better. Mom's going to change your diaper. Is that okay? Is Sovereign going to say, no, Mom, I really would rather you didn't? but essentially, what it's doing is saying, this is your body. And nobody should touch your body without permission, even starting as little as that. Essentially, we're saying, you own this. And one of the things that is coming out in this new book that I'm writing for kids is something that we taught our kids, and especially afterwards, and our grandkids, is this is your private space. Elbow to hip, right here. This is your little bubble. And no one should come into that bubble unless you invite them. Now, very few of us are going to say, Jane, will you come in my bubble? What we are going to do is smile, or lean forward, or step towards them, or reach out and touch them. Some indication that they're welcome. And when I teach about setting boundaries, one of the best things you can teach your kids is this. You know, when the kids at daycare are right up here, just, you know, back off. That's a universal sign for stop. So this is your safety zone. This is your air. Now, when I've taught before, I've had males who are so important to the development of children. Strong male role models, very important. And every time I have males in my parenting classes, I say, I don't want to hear, I'm this baby's daddy, I'm this baby's daddy is here, this baby's daddy. I say, you are the baby's daddy. You strong, honest, kind males need to step up and teach children that there are strong, nice, kind males who will help them and who love them. So, see, this is the part with getting old. You were talking about your eyes and your ears. The other part is my mind goes, shh. Wonder where I was, you know. But where was I? Anyway, so we'll get back to this. I'm going to go through a series of questions. We're going to break about 10 o'clock, so you can go get some coffee, go to the bathroom again. And then we're going to come back and we're going to play a game. And it's a fun game, and it kind of teaches us, it's one that you play with your kids, I'll bet, all the time. But it kind of teaches us some different body language, some things that we can do to set boundaries and to help our kids set boundaries. So children who are afraid are not empowered. What does empowered mean? Does anyone have an idea when I say empowered? Yes. Confidence. Confidence. Yeah. Yeah. When you see someone who's confident, you immediately respect them. You just know that they know who they are. What's another definition for empowered?
In charge.
In charge. Yeah. 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 And on the opposite side of empowered are people pleasers. People who want so much to have people love them that they will do anything, that they will say anything. And we want to empower our people. We want to empower our children. Now, I especially want you to look at this. Problem solver or problem saver. And a lot of times, there's probably 4 or 5 of us in this room who have problems from our childhood that we're still saving. Only, like most of us, we don't just save them. Sometimes we bring them up, and like the cows out in Deer Lodge, you know, when you drive past the cows, they're chewing on their cud. Then they move their cud over here. It's called rumination. The only mammal that does that better than a cow is a woman. And we just chew on it and chew on it and chew on it and chew on it. And we save it. So my suggestion, my advice to you professionals is to model being a problem solver. So I'm going to step aside from Caution Without Fear to give you another little commercial about the coming generations. These babies right here, this is so exciting because these babies don't have a clue on what they will be because it hasn't been invented yet. It hasn't even been invented. And some of you have heard my story of when I was 6 years old and grew up on a ranch in Idaho. And I was what was called a midlife baby. Any of you had any of those bonus babies? Yeah, that's, you know, you're like, ah, whoops, you know. But so all of my brothers and sisters were quite a bit older. And I'm outside playing, and I have all of my stuffed animals, my dolls, around me, and I'm on the top of a loading chute. And I just get this huge epiphany that I am to teach families all over the world that I am to write books and that I am to have 6 children and that I will live to be 97. And I think, wow. And so I go in and tell my mom that, and thank goodness my mother was a wise woman, and she said, there you go. Now you know. But go back, I'm 69, so go back 63 years in rural Idaho. The idea of teaching people all over the world, the only person I had ever known who had even flown across the sea had been in a war. People in my neighborhood didn't fly. People in my neighborhood didn't write books. They didn't know how. They did have children, but they And they knew how to do that very well, but they didn't know how to do these other things. So even imagining it was beyond comprehension. How possibly 63 years later am I in a little home office in Missoula, Montana, with this shirt on, this jacket, pajama bottoms, dog on my feet, with a webcam, my little MacBook Pro, teaching men and women in Afghanistan, in Arabia, in Arli, in Africa. How could we have even visualized that? It was beyond comprehension. So when we look at these little babies and we look at the kids that you work with on a daily basis, it's absolutely vital that you help them to know that they are problem solvers. And your job is to help them help themselves. It's not to help them. It's to help them help themselves so that they become more and more proficient at solving problems. So the toys need to be picked up. Instead of saying, the toys need to be picked up, hurry up, the toys need to be picked up, say, the toys need to be picked up. What are 3 ways we could get them picked up? What's another way? Okay, we picked him up that way last time. What can we do this time that's different? How can we do this so that they're thinking of problems, or they're thinking of solutions? That's what we want, because on a business, when they are, right now, he's a week old, but I promise you like that, he'll be 21. And what we want is for them to have developed skills that they can use when they're going to graduate school or they're interviewing for a job. And so we want them to gain those heart characteristics, the characters of the heart. We don't want to just praise him for doing a good job. Is it him or her? Him. We don't want to just praise him for doing a good job. We want to praise him for a character trait. Wow, you're a good problem solver. Wow, you really have an eye for design. Wow. And do you know why I say wow like that? Because the ear hears that different. If it's an exclamation, it goes into a different part of their ear and it registers. Like, oh, okay. So that, wow, you really know how to sort things. So what we're trying to do is give him problem-solving skills that he can take from this portion of his life into any portion of his life. We want them to be transferable. So does that make sense to everybody? So these kids you're working with, these are not just ordinary kids. I promise you. These are kids who will be saving the world. And you are laying the foundation. And I know from working with parents all over the state and all over the country that some of these kids are coming to you with massive problems. But it's your opportunity to show them appropriate behavior, to teach them character traits, to teach them empathy, to teach them how to get along in the world. Because you've been given that calling. And I really believe that. If the 2 angels, walking angels, that I see are you guys who work with little kids and those who work with the aged, the 2 most vulnerable ends of society. And I say to you and to the CNAs and to the nurses, if you're just working for $9 an hour, it's a job. If you've been working for $9 an hour for 9 years, you think it's a career. If it isn't a calling, then please go to work at Walmart, please. Because this is just like being an author. They can't pay you enough for what you do, right? Are any of you overpaid? No. No. You would, that's just like being an author. You don't go into that expecting to make money. You go into that expecting to change lives. And that's what you're doing. You're in that position of changing lives. Okay, so we're going to talk about now, I've told you my story and why I felt drawn to teach this class, because I haven't taught this class for 5 or 6 years. Want to teach you some of the facts and some of the questions that you need to know as mandatory reporters and as kind, loving adults. Because that's your most important calling, is being a kind, loving adult. So, want to talk to you a little bit. I've got handouts that you can take home with you. However, I only made 35. I don't know how many there are here. So
one can go per center or group home.
Okay.
Versus
Okay.
every individual. Should work out.
That'll work out then. Yeah. Bless my husband's heart. He ran to Missoula Copy last night at 5 minutes to 6. And the guy said, "Yeah, you're Judy Wright's husband." I said, she said, "Yeah, I know. You know, what can you do but love her? You know, she's not going to get any better."
Change.
She's not going to change. At this point, you just have to accept her. You know. But thought I would share some things with you that I got from STEP and that I got from the research that I'm doing. And this is an interesting group of information that on the break, if you want to come and talk to me personally about any of these, this is one of those acronyms, is that the word? Or a bunch of acronym? Yeah. That just rolls off your tongue. NCTSN, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. So when you go home to look this up, you'll say, "Huh? What was that?" You'll never believe it, because it's not one that rolls off your tongue. But I have some very specific, highly researched material here that I can share with you individually. What I would like to share with you is just some information about questions that you may have. Anything? Are we okay? Okay. How do I protect my children?
Teach them to listen to their inner voice. If they feel funny, there's something funny.
That's right. That's right. And that's easier said than done, because if I knew, it wouldn't have happened in my family. But the reality is that there are more good people than bad people. And a few years ago in Utah, a little Boy Scout was lost. And they sent search parties out. It was freezing. It just kept getting worse and worse, and they feared that he wouldn't live. And finally, they found him. And he said, "I heard you calling." Their footprints were as close as this door. The search party was that close. And he said, "But my mom told me not to talk to strangers." Really, really. And I am probably the most PTA president-looking grandma in the world. And when I see a young kid in the store and I say, "Oh, what a darling dress, I love that." And by the way, this is the safe zone, shoulder to elbow. This is a safe zone that anyone, you can pat right here, and it's non-sexual. I say, "What a darling dress, I love that." And she,
Yeah.
and I think, no. Honey, you may be safe from a child predator, 1 in 10 billion, but you're also going to lose out on some great relationships. And don't be afraid. But there is an inner voice. And that is sometimes hard for parents to tell their kids or to talk to their kids. So a game that's good is you're in the car or you're waiting for lunch or whatever, and you play "What If?" Okay, what if we were in the mall and we got separated? Give me 3 things, 3 possible solutions. Well, I would walk home. You know, well, I would, you know, and you say, you know, those are good answers, but let's figure out what you would do. Let's figure out a plan. And so when we're protecting our children, this is exactly like what you talk about your children if there's a fire. If there's a fire, what do you tell them to do? Stand there and what do you tell them to do? What's your plan?
We have
Go
color
to the
drills
big, yeah, we do too.
so that we can set up a plan, and I try and reinforce to the parents, you know, to make a plan so that we never
Exactly.
meet in place.
That exactly. You make a plan. Because if we plan, then we don't panic. And we're prepared. And so when we say, well, what if you were lost? Well, then if you did walk home, what are some things that could happen when you were walking home? You know, you might go out the wrong door. You might do this. Let's make a plan in case you're ever lost in the mall. Let's make a plan in case there is a fire. So when we're talking to them, we need to talk to them just as calmly and as rationally as we do about a fire or any other emergencies. And in teaching them to acknowledge that inner heart, it's just like when I went in and told my mother that had happened to me. That could have gone one of 2 ways. She was a housewife, you know. She could just as easily have said, really? Well, that's fun. I bet you're having fun playing that game. Or, well, I got to mash these potatoes. Can you run and get me some carrots? And I would have diminished it. What she did and said was she validated it. And I thought, okay, then I can trust my instincts. And a good way to talk to them and to teach them about that is that sometimes you will, okay, how many of you here have ever gone into a store and just thought, whoa, I don't want to spend my money here? It's just almost tangible. You can feel this negative energy. And you think, I'm out of here. Or you meet someone and you think, something's not right.
We call that rubber sheets creepy, when the hair goes up on your arms and you just feel like you got the willies from someone.
Good idea. Rubber sheets willies.
Creepy, just like
Rubber sheets.
just gives you the willies.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Back away.
yeah,
It's your spirit saying,
and
this isn't for my highest good.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and you have to worry with teenagers. My daughter gets that
Absolutely.
feeling. And we were at a dinner, and she didn't want to sit by somebody. And it wasn't because of their appearance. She said that they made her uncomfortable. But there were some other family members that thought she was being a shit. And I told her, you listen to your own voice. What they feel about it doesn't matter. It's okay if you sit a seat over. You have to listen. You have to be responsible for how it makes you feel. And if they're upset, I'll deal with them later.
Right. And what happens sometimes are almost ripple effects. Because especially with sexual predators, and as we get into that, it isn't how they choose their victims is availability. So if someone is empowered and is confident and says, you know, I'll go sit over here, they don't choose them. I mean, it would be wonderful if that perpetrator would say, oh, sorry, I'll never do it again. I've seen the light. But unfortunately, they don't. They move to someone else and do that. But yes, you must respect that. What are some other ways that we protect our children? Let's talk about churches. I'm sure that, or Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, that's very isolated. I know it appears in the paper daily, and it appears that it's an ongoing concern, but it really, most of them are very good. One of the things you do is you make sure your church has a window in every door. Your preschool has a window in every door. Will that protect them? It will. Some. Okay, so when should you start teaching these skills?
Early.
Really?
When you say, Sovereign, I am going to change your diaper. May I have your permission to change your diaper? This will make you feel better. You'll feel clean and healthy, and mom loves you, and this is a good touch, or this is a kind touch, this is a loving touch, and you should touch that baby. You really should. A lot. So what happens, and this is kind of going ahead a little bit, so Sovereign has a 2-year-old, I'm just guessing, I'm just pulling this out of the air, has a 2-year-old there, and mom's changing the diaper, and the 2-year-old comes over to look at the baby and is playing with the baby, not really playing, but examining the baby's penis. Is that sexual assault? No. That is normal. What the mom does, though, is say, these are our private parts. I'm sure you're curious. Everybody is curious about the difference between boys and girls. And I can get a book and show you, but these are his private parts, just as you have your private parts, and no one should touch them without your permission. So you're just correcting. When it becomes a question is when there's a difference in age or in strength or in I can't even think of another word, but intent. That's a wonderful word, yes. Then it is something that needs strong intervention. And when I was writing this book, which actually started out as 3 books, Raising Smart and Kind Kids, I wrote this about teaching empathy. And in my research, and I had 3 of them for babies, for toddlers, and for kids who are going to school, preschools. In my research, what I found that there is a window of time when kids learn empathy. When they get it. They see it and they get it. And they just, oh, so that's how we treat people. Oh, okay. So that's an appropriate way. So can I borrow your water for a minute? Okay. So when this baby's born, just like this, completely pure, just as clear as can be. So he doesn't know who he is. We have to tell him who he is. That's why we go out of our way to tell him, you are kind. Wow, that was really a generous thing to have done. Wow, that was very thoughtful of you. So we're filling this with these character traits so that he knows who he is. And in this stage, up until about 7 or 8, he's really absorbing this. Oh, so that's how you do it. Okay, I get it. After about 10, they don't get it. Their brain is filled with so many other things, and they don't get it without adult intervention. So when little kids are bullying or teasing, you can show them, this is the way you're kind to a cat. This is the way you treat others. This is how you treat books. As they get older, it literally takes someone who says, hey, we don't do that. That is not acceptable. And it has to have that adult intervention in order for them to stop what they have and to think through. Now, something that's going to come up is, are most offenders dirty old men? No. Most offenders are family members or in the family of trust. Almost universally, they started as adolescents. And when I wrote my first book, because of our experience, my prejudice, even after I told you that I didn't have any, I do, you know, because I'm human, my prejudice was that they were creeps, rotten, filthy, dirty monsters. Well, the more I interviewed, and the more I talked to psychologists, and the more I talked to former offenders, the more I recognized that it goes clear back to our village and what we teach our children about what is appropriate sexual activity. It means that we need to, when we catch two little 5-year-olds in the bathroom with their pants down, we need to say, whoa, you know what? I know you're curious, but let's find a book about it. Come on, let's pull your pants up, wash your hands, let's go. Let's go back, it's time for recess. Or we can say, ah, you dirty little rotten, you should be ashamed, shame, 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 shame. So what does that kid think? Geez, this is really bad. I mean, what's put in here? He's shame, shame, shame. Why didn't I do better? Why didn't I do that? So is he going to ask when he sees something on television? That seems bizarre. Or is somebody sitting there watching with him on television when something happens and able to say, you know, that isn't what happens in real life. And you know, my kids think that the only reason, Ron, we got to edit some of this out before my kids ever see it. But my kids think the only reason I speak like this is so I can spill the family guts to a room full of complete strangers. But I have to tell you that one of our daughters, well, all of our daughters are very avid readers. But one time I'm doing the dishes with a daughter who's about 11, and she has read all of the Nancy Drews, everything, and has picked up a bunch of Harlequins where she babysits. So we're doing the dishes, and she says, so Mom, will you tell me the truth? And I said, absolutely, you know I will. Absolutely, always. She said, so you and Dad do it like 10, 12 times a night? I said, not even in his wildest fantasy. I said, where would you even get that? And she said, well, it seems like in the books that they're just continually having sex. On television, they're continually having sex. Television. Yeah. Don't they have time to go to the grocery store? Or, you know, how do they do that? I don't get it. And I said, you know, it gave me an opportunity to correct that. Well, I told this story, frequently I've told this story, unfortunately, you know, but a woman in the audience said, yeah, and I didn't have a mother who told me the truth. And so when I got married and we didn't have sex often, I thought, what's wrong with me? Why, how am I failing? Obviously, there's something the matter with me, or it would be a different scenario. So part of what we're doing in protecting our children and our adolescents is we're telling them the truth. We are telling them that boys get erections from sheets. They have wet dreams. And one of the things that offenders, just like the offender for our daughter, said, well, you must have wanted it or you would have thrown my arm off. Offenders will say to boys, obviously you wanted this or you wouldn't have gotten hard. Boys can get hard just walking down the hall. I mean, that's what adolescent boys do. That's a fact, and they need to know that they are not bad, they are not shameful, that's part of growing up. And they need to be able to talk to adults and say, is this part of being a boy? Is this part of what I should be doing? So we've established that a lot of those who are offenders started as adolescents. So one of the ways that we protect our children is we teach them, and then we're very vigilant about some red flags with adolescents. One of the red flags is being cruel to animals. I mean, is that silly or what? But if they're cruel to animals, there's this kind of lack of conscience there. And they're thinking, I have power. So those are some things that we need to watch out for. We're going to go through this. Why didn't my child tell me? How do we teach respect and assertiveness at the same time? When and where do most molestations occur? I'm going to leave you with this, and you're all going to go in and get a cup of tea to rinse out your mouth. And because when I'm writing this, frequently I have to go take a shower and put on clean clothes and think, oh, please, let's protect these children. Let's protect these children. Where do you think most molestations occur?
Home. In the home or in the family circle.
That's exactly right. Yep. Right in the home. Yep. Given that situation, is it possible for Grandpa to love the child and still abuse her? Or him? It is possible. And that's why it's confusing. It is possible because they do love them, they do care about them, but they still don't know how to stop these inappropriate actions. So I promise you a break. If you need to spit in the waste can, you can, because this is not a pleasant subject. I super admire you for coming today, because I know that this triggered some things in a lot of people who said, I'm not going. I'll go when she's talking about chores, but I'm not going to hear this. Okay, so let's take a break for, what, 10 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, take a break for 10 minutes. About boundaries, and about safety, and about closed communities or closed houses. A lot of homes are closed, and I forgot to bring my artichoke, but the artichoke is my logo. And the reason I chose the artichoke is because it's like a lot of families that I work with. They're very closed and kind of prickly around the edges. And the only way to open them up is through warmth and patience. But as we look at families sometimes that are closed, one of the ways we know is because they have family secrets they don't want anyone to share. And they tell the family that we don't want to hang our dirty linen out for the world to see, or nobody needs to know about this. So what are some typical family secrets that may be kept in a family?
This came up just this last week with a new child in care. And he seemed to be doing just wonderful and having a nice time with our little team group and what have you. And all of a sudden, he kind of just went down in a slump. And so I walked up to him and I said, "Are you doing okay?" And it just like, it opened up his little world, you know, and he's talked about his dad. And I said, well, I guess sometimes that happens, you know. And it kind of turned his whole conversation, just redirected himself. And so when his mom came to pick him up I said, he seemed to do pretty well today. I said, however, he kind of fell into this little slump and had mentioned his dad. And right away, she just like clomped onto that. And she just sternly kind of looked at him and she goes, that's family talk.
Right.
We do not talk about it any other place. That's family talk. And I'm like, whoa, I guess I don't know if I should have been telling her.
Yeah, and
Because it was solved, you know,
Yep.
but he, you know, I hated to see the little guy, you know, go into a slump like that.
And we're only as sick as the secrets we save. And we can't, we can't get help unless we ask for help. And only smart people ask for help. Do you know the 3 hardest things for people to do? Say, I love you, say, I'm sorry, and ask for help. Will you help me? Yeah. So some of the secrets that families may keep is alcoholism, is, you know, there's all drug use, all sorts of things that they want to keep within this little closed secret. What happens is that that's so hard for little kids to sort out. What is safe to tell and what isn't safe to tell. But they need to have you as an advocate to say, I am safe. And I teach daycare providers to teach children to put their hands over their hearts and to say, I am safe and I am lovable. I am safe and I am lovable. Because there are times in our life when we aren't loved, unfortunately. But we are worthy of love. We are lovable. So part of the reason I did the fox and hen is because I wanted to bring up some of the feelings, not just for the hen, who was like, whoa, where do I go? What do I do? But also for the fox. Like, this isn't working. This isn't working. And we've got to have a little compassion for the fox. We've got to say, hey, you know what? You need a dinner, and I'll give you $4.99 to run to KFC, but you're not going to eat this chick. So it's just, did any of that bring up some emotions for any of you? Some things like, you wanted to reach out and help, or you wanted to guide, you wanted to direct, you wanted to point the way? Which is exactly what we're doing with these. Having these available at our daycare facilities. They said, here's a way. Here's a way. You don't have to do it alone. So let's go through your handout. And I want you to be free to ask questions. We will edit them out if we need to, and I will repeat them so that he's just picking up mine. Instead of saying, don't let anyone touch your private parts, which puts the onus on the child, I didn't mean to, but it just happened. You say, no one has the right to touch your private parts. It's a big difference. It's very subtle, but a big, big difference. And one of the worst parts of child sexual abuse is the shame. And let me see if I can find my notes here about the percentage of adults who, when they become adults, it's like 3 out of 4 did not tell when they were children. And the reasons they don't tell is because they're not sure what's going to happen. They're not sure they're going to be believed. They're not sure what is going to go on if they do tell. So let's go through some of these signs and symptoms. Now, I want to be very clear with you that these are also the symptoms that you have when you're 13. These are when you're 10 and nobody likes you on the playground. And you're 7 and you're in a class where the teacher doesn't like you. So none of these are perfect indicators. These are red flags to those of us who are in a position that says, this child is troubled. We're not sure why they're troubled, but let's see what we can do to help. So let's go through them. Precocious or exaggerated sexual behavior. What that means is that oftentimes children will enact something that they have either seen, observed, or have had done to them that's beyond their level. They don't know, they wouldn't ordinarily know what that means. So a pattern of catering to a man in an adult way, and this happens often. I called the Attorney General's office to find out a definition of incest because it has changed. It used to be sexual relationships between someone who is so closely related by blood they could not marry. But now it's more of who is in that family of trust, who's in that circle of influence, who has an opportunity on a daily basis, and who is in a caregiving role. So I ask about live-in boyfriends, and they said that's a very, very gray area, because if a live-in boyfriend or girlfriend, I mean, we're picking on the guys here today because there's not very many of them, but there are women who orchestrate this and also participate in this, but mostly orchestrate it. If the live-in boyfriend is in a caregiving position, then it's handled by one portion of the police department. If he's in a non-caregiving, it's handled by a completely different department. So, interesting, isn't it?
I wondered that because there's a, you know, the sexual predator or whatever, the website where they have to register. There's a gentleman in our neighborhood who, it was incest, but he wasn't related, but he lived with the family. And I wondered about that because I thought, oh, maybe he's a cousin, and I just never realized the connection, but now I wonder, because I didn't think they were related.
Yeah, yeah, and it's very, and she brought up a good point about level 1, level 2, and level 3. And those are, and I should have gotten that, but I didn't. I think level 1 is less likely to reoffend.
To reoffend,
Yeah.
3 is will, or highly likely.
Highly likely.
The guy's peeing in an alley by a dumpster and a cop catches him, he can be a level 1 sex offender for having his penis out in public, even if he never was intentional to be around another human being.
Right.
So, on those guys' rights favor, that's a really gray area.
It really is a gray area. And actually, we had a sexual offender in our neighborhood, and I looked it up, went down and talked to him. And what happened was he was 19 and dating a 17-year-old girl. And the father charged him with rape. And so is the likelihood of him reoffending? No. No. And that's, the more I got into this, the more I moved from the position of them and us into us. We need to work together to solve this problem.
Well, that's why I was concerned. This is a young guy as well. He's 20, but he'd been raised by the family, even though it's just, but it's level 1, and
There's a lot of that stuff that goes on.
right.
Yeah, there is. There is.
So I'm not concerned about him with the child care, is what I was saying, as
Yeah.
opposed to some other ones that are nearby that have a different story, but.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I just wondered if anybody has ever seen Gracie's Choice.
Gracie's Choice?
Anne Heche.
No.
If you gotta watch this movie.
Okay, Gracie's Choice, Anne
She's a
Heche.
very bad mother. She is. I'm telling you, she's like the worst mother you'll ever meet in your life. She's got 4 kids out of 4 different guys. She brings them into her home. They abuse her daughters. And she defends the guys. You want to just kill her in this book. She's so good. But and then Gracie takes over and raises.
I have seen it.
That's awesome.
Yes, the Gracie raises the
whole family.
the whole, yes, yes,
And it was a true story.
yes, yes, I have seen that. Yeah, Gracie's choice, yeah.
And Anne Heche is just, she plays this part so well.
Well, I think that it's very easy for us to judge. It's very hard to be in that position, and to look with compassion on everyone, because not only was the fox having some issues of being afraid, but that the hen was too. You know, like, am I going to be able to find safety? What am I doing? Is somebody guiding me here? So, a habit of enjoying special treats, gifts, and attention from an adult. This is very common, and this is called grooming. And this was something that was used in all of the Boy Scout cases that came out recently, where I can't even remember, I thought it was somewhere in Kalispell, but maybe not, where they insisted that all of the Boy Scout records be opened. That there were Boy Scout leaders who would take certain Boy Scouts camping and give them special treats. This is what it's talking about, grooming them. Sexual behavior or knowledge inappropriate. And you would know this in your daycare if they used words that would not ordinarily be in a 4-year-old's language bank. You would know that. Maybe saying, I don't want to go to Uncle Charlie's house. You know, I don't want to go to Grandpa's for Thanksgiving. May not have anything that they can really tell you, but indirectly they're saying, I'm setting up a boundary. I don't want to go there. And mystifying statements, and this is where you're going to get, like what you did, is, I'm worried about my daddy. I'm worried about why this is happening, or I'm worried about that. These are clues to you to talk to them, to communicate with them calmly, very calmly. And one of the things that it's repeated over and over again in all of the research that I've done, everything, is to not put words in their mouth, but to say, I want to know more about that. Can you explain that a little more? Or what do you mean by that? Or how would that happen? In a very calm, non-accusatory voice, but just gather information. And then one of the things that I found interesting was even parents who do that then turn around, dial the phone, say to the police, you know, the sex addict, where the child can hear. And so the child is like, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? Okay. Unpredictable poor grades, suddenly turning against a parent, lack of attention, extreme changes in behavior. This one is really important. Any unusual behavior, especially if a child seems to be out of control. For instance, bullying younger children or animals. And that's usually a really big red flag that something's amiss there, and they need to have intervention. Reluctance to go home or to church activities. Poor peer relationships. Now, I have to tell you on this, if someone is being offended, the perpetrator will try to isolate them. Will try to create it's us against them. So we don't want you to have friends. We don't want you to go to church. We don't want you. They're not worthy to be your friend. I'm your only friend. I'm the only one that you can count on. So a lot of times if they have difficulty in peer-to-peer relationships, this may be a cause of that. However, if you've come to my training on the left-out child, you know that on the playground pecking order, there's 10,942 different reasons. So this is just one just one of those things. Emotional signs. The one that really jumps out at me is a fearful disposition. And do all of you know what fear stands for? It's false evidence appearing real. And so our fox, when he was out there, thought, they took the hen out. You know, they put the hen in the kitchen. I'm not going to be able to find her. So it's false evidence appearing real. So if a perpetrator says to a child, I'm the only one that loves you, mommy doesn't love you, or if you tell, I will be sent to jail, and then you will be homeless. That's not true, but that's false evidence appearing real. And so they believe that. Social promiscuity, and that's one, and in talking, in my research, I talked to a man who had been married to a woman who had been sexually abused throughout her early childhood and teenage years. And he said in their marital relationships, she could have sex, but she couldn't have intimacy. She had never learned how to have intimacy. That she divided sex, the activity of sex, and intimacy in two separate places. It took years of counseling, and they're fine. Lots of stress in kids, but I mean, once again, this could be anything. It's only when we have layers upon layers upon layers upon layers that we think, okay, as a caring adult, we need to jump in here. Sleep disturbances. And a lot of times that's one because they have someone in the family who is coming into their room at night. And so they stay awake at night. They're hypervigilant. Hypervigilant. Think, if I stay awake, it won't happen. If I'm on guard, it won't happen. And then they get to daycare or school and they're exhausted. They're just exhausted. Lots of new fears, a return to younger, more babyish activities. A lot of kids will start wetting the bed again. They will suck their thumb when they haven't sucked their thumb for years. They will carry a teddy bear when they haven't used their teddy bear. Just a return to a time when they felt safe. And we can certainly understand that. So withdrawal, and I've had school teachers tell me that they see this with family problems, but with this too, is that a kid becomes spacey. And it's that they're trying to make sense of all of this, of a very confusing situation, or they're exhausted, or they're 10 years old. How many of you have ever had 10-year-olds who were like that? When you said, did you take the garbage out? I don't know. And you think, really? You don't know whether you took the garbage out or not? I mean, this is a yes or no. This is not a I don't know. But so once again, see, there's things that you have to take these. You don't call Child Protective Services immediately, but you always err on the side of the child. Always. Always err on the side of the child. Over-emotional, easily intimidated by older children, fear of male adults, easily startled by males, because males' voices are deeper. And so when a man speaks or laughs, they'll jump. You know, it will be something that triggers them. Smells. There will be certain smells that will trigger emotional outbursts for them. So physical signs, some children tend to overdress. I knew a little girl who was a teenager when I knew her, that had heard about our private parts and our swimming suits cover our private parts, so she wouldn't take her swimming suit off. I mean, she just wore a swimming suit and about 10 layers of clothing because she thought somehow that would keep her safe. Do you know that? But once again, we're talking about children who haven't had the experience that we as adults have. If someone told me, well, who's going to believe you? I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I'd say, big deal. Anybody with $300 can be a member of the Chamber of Commerce. But to a little kid, that seems pretty important. That seems like it would hold some weight. Sudden nightmares, biting nails, abstractions, daydreaming. Suddenly showing an interest in the genitals of animals or other people. That's one that happens, once again, it comes from a place of confusion. Of like, what is so different? Why is this happening? Or what is happening here? Trying to show affection in inappropriate ways, such as French kissing. And I know how irritating this is to read these out loud because I can't stand to go to a lecture and have someone do the board and then have me have them, the PowerPoint, me have them, except Ron needs to hear these for this. So just have patience. I know you're all thinking, yeah, you know, I can read. But diagnosis of venereal disease. That's one that we would not probably think about, but that happens frequently for small children. Loss of appetite or increased appetite where sometimes they'll think it's because they think I'm cute. He keeps telling me I'm cute. So if I'm ugly, he'll leave me alone. You know, so I'll just keep eating and eating and eating until I weigh 400 pounds and then he'll leave me alone. Or I can no longer feel pain, and so in order to know that I really am alive, I will cut myself to see blood. And the blood will show me that I really am a person. I'm not a thing. I'm not an object. Frequent illnesses, psychosomatic in origin, and if you have a good, skilled nurse at school, they'll pick up on this. But I had, just like when we very first started and the teacher said, yeah, you do-gooders, come in here, tell us all the stuff, and then you leave. And we're stuck with this. Sometimes school nurses think, couldn't you just have a cold? Really. It would be so much easier just to give you, to call your mom. But if you, that's one of the things in your schools you insist that they have good nurses there. Physically obvious signs, they're in pain. It hurts them to go down the slide. It hurts them to swing. Delinquency or aggression, preteens, anger, hostility, like I have no control over my life. I need to have control in some area. Avoidance of physical activity, running away, using drugs or alcohol, especially in teens or preteens. These are all symptoms that just say something's wrong here. Something's not right. Let's just get to the bottom of this. Let's see what we can do to help these kids. So what I want to do is I want to finish up just with asking you to join me in stopping this very, very shocking about human trafficking, that they're not all little kids from the Philippines that have been kidnapped. There are a lot of little kids from Middle America who went to the mall and were kidnapped. And to find out that in America, we really have no place for them to go once they've been saved. And we have kids who have no birth certificate, have no social security, they have no identity. And so I'm going to ask you, as concerned citizens, to take some of these to your area. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Ron to turn the recorder off, and I want to spend the next half hour just one-on-one or group discussion, because this is a synergy of very intelligent women and men who are in these positions because you're caring, loving adults. And we need to be able to find some solutions to help our kids in our communities. So without further ado, I'm going to close this, and caution without fear. The idea is that we want our kids to be aware. I know a story I wanted to tell you first. How many of you in here have been on a jury? Is that a great experience or what? But isn't it amazing how every witness saw something different? Isn't it? I literally would come home from the jury and go to bed. The first night I'd say, well, he's guilty. The next night I'd say, well, he's innocent. Well, I don't know. Well, how would I know? But the reason we want to teach our kids to be aware is because of our inner voice, and we need to be able to scan an area, not be scared, but recognize if there's dangers. If you're running on the Kim Williams Trail, you don't have a blindfold on, you're looking. You're looking for potholes. You're looking ahead. You're watching. And that's what we want to teach our kids, is to be aware, but don't be afraid. Because if you see a big hole on the Kim Williams Trail, you go around it. If you see a big rock, you climb over it. The better prepared you are, the less you have to fear. So that's my story. And thank you, Ron. I appreciate it.